Good evening, everyone, to our first or to our 12th meeting in the year in the new space sponsored by Synergy. Thank you very much, Gail and Gio, for the opportunity. Thank you very much. So we are, let me go. Yeah. First, we have a code of conduct. So be kind to each other. Just if you want to have more information what the code of conduct is, just go to this address. But I think we will not have any problems with this code of conduct. Yeah, many thanks to our sponsors. Thank you very much, Synergy, for giving us this opportunity to host it on Gather in the future. Thank you very much, Gail and Gio. Also, Gio, very much for thank you very much for organizing and guiding me through the workflow. And so it's a bit stressful for the first time, but I think it's a very good experience. Thank you for this. Yeah. Who am I? I am Constantin. I work nearly daily with PowerShell. You can reach me on my Blue Sky socials, and also if you want, you can connect on LinkedIn. The Twitter handle for the user group is also available here. If you want to present something in my user group, I have CFPs open on Sessionize. So if you want to present anything, you can hit me up on Blue Sky or go to our Sessionize user group site. I haven't published any dates for next year, but I will do this shortly. So if you have something to present, you can reach out to me. Yeah, session will be recorded. Microphone's muted. I think that's good. And I will monitor the chat, Adam, I think, so that you can focus on your presentation later. And if you have any questions, please feel free to go to the Q&A section below the stage to ask any questions. Just a bit of guidance how Gather can be used. If you go to the blue seats in the conference room, you are on your own and you watch the conference on your own. If you go to the gray seats, you can have a group conversation with everyone who is in this gray area, and you can chat and hear the conversation also. And if you have any questions, go to the Q&A section and unmute yourself to ask a question or write it in the chat. I will monitor this. Good. And also, we are now in the PowerShell World Meetup network. So there are many PowerShell user groups also available there. So I think the Belgian user group is already there. The Hanover user group is there. So if you have this in your favorites and check the meetup network, the PowerShell World Meetup network, you see which other sessions are there, and you can also I think they are also on Gather, or they are also hosted on Gather, so you can join them also. Good. I think we will start with our content today. We are hosting the Christmas edition of PowerShell Universal. So we will do a very demo-heavy session. So no slides, what Universal is and what's new in version 5 XYZ. Version 5.1 dropped yesterday, I think, Adam. Very exciting release. But we will focus on 2 demos. So I have a demo with me. Gail, I hope you don't mind. I stole your regress idea. So I built a dashboard around the regress IN API to query the API to show something in a table and so on. And I also structured my projects like I did it in many customer projects. And Adam, I think later will present a Christmas shopping list, Christmas shopping cart app or so, where we can get in the mood, because it's not so long till we have Christmas. So, okay. Are there any questions? Because I think then we can start with the first demo. Are there any questions? I have to maximize the window. No questions? Okay, good. Then I will start sharing my screen. Let's go here. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep, I can see it.
Let's see. Where is my browser, which I opened just 2 minutes ago? Okay, so then I have to. Okay, let's stop it again. I have to open my session again. Let's go. Where is it? I don't know. Go to this one. Yes, there it is. Okay, I can share again. And I'm also in the dark. Perfect. So. Okay, let's try this again. Maximize the window, share the screen. This one. Okay, good. So I just built this sample app. It's a one-pager sample app where we have a table and we have our info that we can query from the request API. So if you go to request.in, it's I think a free API that you can query for some test data. So here you have the endpoints that you can query. So for example, you can list all the users. You can have a single user. You also can simulate what it would look like if you have a user that is not found. You can create or update users. You also can simulate a token registering or so. So I just focused on the list users and a single user endpoint query method. So that's the app, the user management app. So here you see the avatar pictures, because if we look at a request, we have a list of users. They have an ID, they have a mail address, they have a first name, a last name, and an avatar. And the avatar is the URL that I will use for the new UD avatar, or you can also use a new UD image for showing the image URL and get the picture back. And I do a table grid, last name, first name, email, and then I have an action column, which is the ID column. And if I click on the button, I can see a modal window popping up where the user info with every information that is on the user is shown. You can also search this. So if I search, for example, for George, I only get George. Then I built a paging component. So I have two buttons. Here you see a page 1 of 2. If I go to the next page, I have page 2 of 2, and the pictures are changing, and the previous page and so on. If I click too much on the previous page, I will get a no more pages available modal window. And also if I go to the next page, if the pages are, if the limit of the max pages are reached, then we're also getting a message. The table component has paging built inside of it, but I think I had a bit of a problem to getting that work, but maybe we can look at it together then. So let's look at the code. If I find my VS Code, where is my VS Code? Let's go back to my VS Code. Here's my VS Code. Good. I ran in a dev container, so I used my demo environment that I presented a while back to have a dev container running only a universal. The universal that I use is also a universal which is a a free universal. So everything that I showed today is free. You don't have to use the license version. I use it with no authentication and so on. So because I think Adam will do the honors to show us some authentication stuff. Good. So let's look at the code. So I built 2 APIs and I built an app. And let's look at the APIs in the window. Let's go here. So if you go to APIs endpoints, we have 2 endpoints. One is the API v1 get user page, and one is the API v user get user by ID :ID. So if you use this syntax with a colon in front and then a I think, Adam, you can correct me, it's calling a route parameter, I think it is called.
Yep.
So if you use this in your code, this will map automatically to the route parameter in your code. So you can type something like API v1 get user /1, and then the 1 will be transferred into your code if you call the $page variable, for example. So if you look at the code, I have a param section also with the $page variable that I'm using. I set it to 1 for because it's the default page, and I'm just calling invoke REST method with this UI. How do I know which UI to call? It's easy, so you can call request in, and then here you have the request UI, and it's calling, and if you also click on it, you will get some sample data. And here you can build also just write /API/users page equals 1, for example, or page equals 2, page equals 3, and so on. So I think you get the idea. That's how you build this UL. I use the get method because if you look again here, we have a get request, and then I do the convert to JSON. So this is I will get structured data back, and I have to convert that back to JSON. We can also use the new feature that Adam implemented to test this. So if I go to the test section and type I want the page 1, click invoke, and here I see the return of my data that came back from the API. So that's the first step, building the API. Then I created an app. I named my app like this, and if I edit the code, it looks like this. So I built a navigation array with a new UD list item. I have a pages array, and I built a new UD page, name user management. Icon is a new UD icon of the type user, and the URL is /user management. And I have content, and inside of the content, I invoke one function. The new ch are my initials, user management page. I also give it the navigation parameter because I want to have the navigation that I provided earlier here in a array list, and I wanted to have it a permanent navigation layout. So this looks like this. So the navigation is then permanently there. Good. And then I call new UD app and give it the pages variable, and the pages will get rendered. So that is the code that I use inside of here. And this one is stored in a module. So normally I will create for every screen, because the code can get very complicated, as we see in a second. I created a module for every screen, and inside of the module, I built my functions and so on to, for example, if I want to have some kind of a plug-in system where I want to have different pages rendered or different pages shown, I just swap them out with the modules I want to have. So that's that's my thing. And I also want to encapsulate my pages in a container, and I think that's a good thing for the modules. If I go to the platform modules section, I can see what modules are inside of my environment. In my case, I use a Docker container, so everything that Adam provides is there. And we can also install something from the PowerShell gallery, or what I did in my case, I go to the repository modules. So if we check where it is, it's in root.PowerShell Universal repository. So that's the base path where everything that Adam that Universal uses is stored inside of the container. And then if we don't have any modules folder, the program creates a modules folder, and there inside we will have a module and a version. So if I create a module, for example, I can provide a name for the module, a description, and a version, and then the program will create this folder and the version and creates a PSD1 and a PSM1. So good. Let's switch back to VS Code to look at the code then. So here's the file view. You see the repository. Here we have where it is. Here we have the modules folder, and here we have our user management, and here we have our PSM1 file. So what did I do there? I have a function where the screen is specified. So here we have our new CH user management page that displays the page. And if I have some helper functions for querying my API. Yeah. So there I see I have an error because it was a bit late, but yeah. So good. We start with the user management. That's a new UD typography. I started with a H3 because I think the H1 is always a bit big. Then I called my user management CH user management page, this one here, where I called my API and also get the page variable. So in the default, it's 1. If we count up later, then I will type get user /2, get user /3, get user -2 or so. I think you get the idea. Then I do the invoke REST method and return the response. And also I remembered me the current page. So I use the cache scope in my development. You can, I think, also use the session scope, but I use the cache scope. Because this is a paging thing, I have to remember the current page where I'm on or where the dashboard is starting. So there is if we go back to the regress API, we have here a page property. That's the page where I am at the moment. Per page 6 is, okay, 6 users or 6 objects are at the page. We have 12 total. We have 2 pages. So 2 times 6 is 12. So, and I made use of the page property to get me the current page. So let's scroll down to the table. I have a new UD table with the data. So the user management dot data, if we look back to the API, here we have our data array. So we have to tell the table component which data are the component wants to display. And here we have our columns, say array, I think, a columns array, which we take a look a bit later. I will enable search inside it, and I want to dense it, so I don't want to have so much room between the not the columns, the rows. So I want to lower it a little bit. So I can get rid of the columns, so I don't need to have that parameter. If I call a new UD table without the columns parameter, Universal tries to render it in the best way possible. But if you want to have some customizations like buttons, or want to have, if you have, for example, a date column, you want to have the date rendered a different way or so, then you have to have a table column, and then you have to use the columns parameter for this. So I created a columns array where I, for example, have a table column, which is the property ID. So the property always maps to the property which is inside of the data. So if we have here our structured data, we have an ID property, the male property, the first name, the last name, and the avatar. And if you see here the new UD table column, the property parameter is always the property how the object is structured. In the title, you can name it a different. You can give it a different title, but for the property, you always have to name your properties like your objects, like how your objects are built. I made it align center because it looks a bit funny to have the title on the right side and the button a bit farther right. So I decided to align it center. I included in search. That's not the best idea. But if you want to make your columns searchable, you have to have the parameter include in search. That if you want to customize the columns, you have to use this. Also, if you want to export the thing later, you have also a switch which is called include in export. Then the data will be shown in the export. And I want to have it rendered differently. So if I have an ID, the ID is normally a number. But if you check the dashboard here, I don't have an ID because I have a button rendered. And that's the thing what onRender does. So it's an event if that got triggered when the table column is rendered. And I will show a button. So I will show a button that has a text, view user info, and the button has a click event. And I show inside of when the onClick event is triggered, I show you a modal. And I will get the current user ID. So this property here that is bound to the column is transferred in the event data let's call it array or so. And this has a property ID. So this property that is bound here is inside of this event data. So if your property is named XYZ, you can call $event data.xyz, and you have the value that is inside of the property. Then I call my user by ID. So because we now have a by ID, I created a function which called the user by ID, and the user by ID is this function, and it will invoke the REST method also. Then I created also a typography, which this one it's an H5. I called the new UD avatar, give it an alt text and the image. That's result.data.avatar. So if we look again at the data structure, result.data.avatar, that's the JPEG file. Good. Then we have a grid because I want, if we look back at the structure here, we have here 2 columns, and therefore I use a grid with 2 columns. And you write it like this. You have a new grid with a container. I use the spacing 3, so between the columns there is a bit of a spacing. I think, Adam, is it pixels or is it what currency are you using there?
I think it's kind of arbitrary. It's based on the theme. So like the theme might have that spacing set to 10 or 5 pixels or something like that. So
okay. So I use the spacing of 3, and we have children. We have a new UD grid with items, and this also have children, and I use the new UD typography to display the ID, email, first name, and do a variant of body 1. So if you want to have a normal font size, you can use, I think we have more than one body. I think we have body 1, body 2. I'm not sure, but I think body 1 is a good choice. And for the results of ID, email, first name, last name, we can use result.data.id, result.data.email, result.data first name, result.data last name, and have it a body. So this is the result for building a modal window with a age 5 or 6 with an avatar that has an alt text, and here this two-column view. So, and then we have here the email, the first name, the last name, and the avatar as a table column, and the avatar is rendered also with the new UD avatar. I used also the variant rounded, so you can, this has multiple variants. I think squared and rounded are the two variants. And yeah, that's it for building the table with the columns. So that depends on your. So it's a bit more difficult because I want to show off a bit more features on how to build a more difficult component. I want to show off how to use the columns parameter, how to use a column render stuff, the button with the on-click event, and so on, so that we have a more realistic example. And also, so if I click on the button, that's also a cool stuff. So if I click on the button, the table changes, and also here you see page 1 of 2 or page 2 of 2. So this one is changing. So how is this done? That's I think you build it in the. Is it built in the first release of PowerShell Universal, where you get the dynamic the dynamic technique? Which release was it, Adam?
Yeah, I think that's always been there pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I
think we
also,
added
yeah.
dynamic. It used to be called new UD element. You could use for, but then we added new
Right.
dynamic. So
right. So I created 2 buttons, previous page and the next page. And that's the reason why I built why I use the cache component, because I have to build some kind of logic to where I am in the page. Do I have to add +1 or -1, store the current page in the new cache scope, so that the component always knows what's the current page. So I said, okay, the cache current page -1 is the previous page. I stored the previous page and the current page, and then I have to check with some if statements if the previous page equals 0. If the previous page equals 0, then we show the modal. That's what you saw. The modal with the typography, no more pages available. And I have to set the cache count, the cache current page to 1, because we started 1 with counting. If this is not equal 0, I will get my user management page, and then I have the page parameter above where I say, okay, is it 1, is it 2, is it 3, and so on. And then I use this sync UD element ID user management. And the sync UD element ID user management will render that content, or will re-render the content on this side that it's inside the new UD dynamic. So if you have a new UD dynamic with the ID of user management, so this ID has to map to this ID that sync UD element tries to call, and then it will re-render the table and also the typography, and that is why the numbers and the table content is changing. Also for the next page, that's the same principle. I'm not using the -1. I have to use the +1, store the next page in the current page. I will check if the next page less than the user management total pages. So if we go back to the API, we go to list users. Oh no, I have to scroll here. That the total pages are there. So this we can not go over the total pages. So I have to use this if stuff to check if we are above the total pages. If we are not at the total pages, I will load my user management variable with the page where we need to call. Then I sync the UD element again to say, okay, we are at page 1 of something, and we get the content also and display it in the table. If we exceed the total pages, or we are at the total pages, I set it to the total pages, the current page, and I will show modal no more pages available H6. And I think you see here the new UD typography page cache current page. So the cache current page is that's why I have to fill that's why I have to use the cache scope for because if you have a variable defined in another scope and want to transfer it to a typography or so, you always have to use some kind of scope to store the variable in the browser. So if you use the session, Adam, I think you can use the session scope, the cache scope, and is there not another scope?
Yeah, and then there's the page scope.
So the page scope, yeah.
Yeah, cache scope is global. Session scope is just per user.
Yeah.
And page scope is every page that you open. So every browser tab, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. So in my example, I think I can also use the page scope for not to make it global, or the session scope to store it in the user session. Yeah. And also of user management total pages variant H6, and then we have the table. So that's everything that this one pager needs to be. So that's the whole code for doing such a page. We have paging, we have this one, and so on. And like I told you, Adam, before, I just I tried to use the paging that is built inside of the table. So let me just check if we have. No, where is it? Yeah, here we have it. We have to import the module that we get in IntelliSense. So there is a what it's called. You have to enable paging. I think it is. You have show pagination. That's for displaying the pagination stuff, and then you have your page size. And there, I think I did the what was it? Cache user management dot. I think it was it. Let's look at the API. It was per page. I think it was, yeah. If I go per page. Per underscore page. Then, and if I then restart the dashboard, so if we go to the VS Code extension and go to apps and go to restart this one and just reload the page, you can see here we have now a paging component here where everything is there, but I am not having the buttons enabled for going to the next page. I think because the data or the paging component is not aware that there are more sites.
Right, and that's where when you start wanting to load data, kind of from a service that has paging implemented, you need to use load data instead of the data parameter.
Okay, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So
then you could provide the table with that information. So if you go to the table section in here.
Yeah. So what is this one? If you go to Universal, go to apps and go to the docs, this is a built-in page which Adam provides you to have a help section. So if we go, I think it is data display and then table. I think you also have a sample inside of here.
Yeah, there should be one
where
like
it is column filled. Yeah, server-side processing, this one. Yeah, and then we have a table with the columns, and here we have the load data. Okay, so but then I have to build the whole thing myself. So what is the filter? What is the total count, and so on, to tell the table components what is the page size, what is the data that we have to load, and so on. Right? That is just yeah. Okay. So I will try that. Maybe I will extend my example with another table below this to have it built with paging and so on. Yeah. Okay. Good tip. Thank you very much. So, do you have any questions regarding the example or my example? Was it easy to follow, or is it a bit challenging? I think it's a bit challenging if you see it the first time. We having any questions? Okay. So my code will be available later in GitHub. So I have a presentations repository. So if you want to check out the source code, I also have, I will, yeah, let's see. If I end my screen, I think I will post it in the chat where the source code is. So if you want to have a look at it, then yeah, have a look and check it out. Good. That was the part of my presentation. Thank you very much. And I think, Adam, now you can show us your demo.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. All right, let's try to do this. Screen share.
Thank you very much, Gail. Let's party, right?
One second, I gotta make sure I'm getting it right. Oh, there we go. Well,
in the meantime, Constantin, you say you were using one module per what?
Per page that I built.
One module for each page.
Okay. Yeah, right. So I'm curious because
extreme.
I'm just curious. I want to know what you are doing in your projects. Can you share a little bit how you are structuring complex projects?
I don't have examples at hand, but also I believe Adam's going to cover, because of the 5.1, is probably going to cover a little bit about the modules, and then I'll have to.
Yeah, because I'm very excited. I told Adam before that I'm very excited about the deployments feature that he introduced in 5.1.
Hey, that's Gail's idea.
Oh, nice. Okay,
yeah.
Perfect.
I'm also excited, by the way.
Yeah. Really cool stuff. Yeah.
I actually did not provide or do stuff in modules for my demonstration, so we could talk about that afterwards.
Yeah.
But so okay, I take it you can see that. It looks like I'm sharing.
Yeah.
Okay.
You are sharing. Yeah. Correct.
Cool. Okay. So what I'm going to build today is actually an app for managing like a Secret Santa gift exchange. So the idea being that you can register multiple users, they can create their own little wish list for Christmas presents, and then you kind of randomly select someone to, be the Secret Santa for them, and then, give them the gift from their wish list. And what we're going to do is we're going to build the admin end of that first. and allow you to add users, and then randomly select users to be, assign someone Secret Santa, and then we'll build the user end of it to allow them to create their wish list and look at their Secret Santa's wish list. So this is something we do for like my family's gifts exchange every year. Instead of getting everyone in our family Christmas presents for everyone, we just get to pick one person, which is kind of nice.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
Yep. So I actually have a completely blank PowerShell Universal. There is nothing in here at all. And I am not going to type through all this, but I will kind of build this as we go and kind of describe what the code is doing. And yeah, you can kind of see it come together. So wish me luck. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a script to add users to our system. So I am calling this or creating this add user script, and as you can see, it's just a blank script right now. I don't know.
Yeah. Just do a That's great. Yeah.
All right. So I'm actually just going to not type this out, but I will describe what's happening here. So this add user script is going to take a single parameter, which is the name of a user. And what I'm actually going to use to store all the data for this application is the cache. So PowerShell Universal has a memory cache that you can use across the server, or if you include the persist argument on set PSU cache, switch parameter, it will store it in the database. So then it is actually persistent, it will survive restarts, and every single instance of PowerShell Universal using the same database would actually have access to this value.
Mm-hmm. So,
from there,
you have a licensed version. What database are you using? SQL Server?
This is using just SQLite. So I'm not actually using
SQLite.
I could use SQL Server, but yeah, this is just using SQLite.
Okay.
Other question: how is it stored in the database?
So it is just pretty much a flat table with key value pairs, but the value is a PS or CLI XML. So you can see I'm creating a PS custom object here. We actually serialize that to CLI XML, and then when we get it out of the database, we deserialize it. So there have been requests to maybe extend this and have it so that you could have your own custom schema and everything, because one of the downsides of storing data like this is it's very hard to query, but it also allows us to put any type of data in the database. So
the problem is not having access to other data like your users or stuff like that. If you store your users in your table and then you want to be able to use that and link to other stuff, then there's no link possible.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, that's kind of the downside of doing it like this. It's simple, but it's not, I would say, as useful for other systems as well. So like, it's really useful inside PowerShell Universal because you have access to like deserializing things and stuff like that. But if you had like something like Power BI and you wanted to look at this data, it'd be very hard to do so. So yeah. But yeah, for this kind of the sake of simplicity, I did it this way. It would also be possible to, create the table myself and then use something like DBA tools to like store the data in there. But I wanted to kind of like avoid having to use any other, overcomplicated. So that's why I kind of went this simpler route. And this is just creating a PS custom object and setting a name, a URL. This is going to be where the user will go to actually manage their own stuff. I actually did not end up implementing this. I was going to have it make it so that you could see when they visited it and stuff like that. And then from there, I'm going to have an assigned user, so who they are going to give gifts to pretty much, and then a wish list for the items that they want. So that's what that's going to do. So if we save that, it's going to save the script, and now we have our script. And if we actually click this, you'll see that the name parameter is there, and I could go ahead and add myself to the list. Going to run the script. You'll see the output of the job. I didn't actually output any data from this, but if we go look inside the cache, you'll see that it did create that user. So user Adam is in there when he was created and updated, and then you can see we haven't read it yet, so it doesn't exist.
You can make that script also available through the portal that you are having since version 5. So that, for example, an external user can create a user view if you want to give that out.
Yeah. If we wanted to, we could assign it to a user, and then if we went out to the portal, it'll show up in there, and we can actually. Oh, I don't know why that happened. You can actually view that script and run it from here. So what I'm actually going to do is build an app over the top of this, though, instead of using the portal, just kind of for fun. All right. So the other script that I'm going to create, now that we have our add user script, I'm actually going to add a script for getting users. So I'm just going to call this get users. So as you can imagine, this could have been a module. So I don't know why I went the script route, but I did, just for simplicity maybe. But the benefit of a module, though, is that if I did call, create these in a module, I can call them throughout the platform. Like right now, I'd have to call the PS1 files, and you'll see I'll be using invoke PSU script just so that we have logging in the job table. But yeah, this could have all been in a module. So now I have my get user script. So all this is doing is it's got a single parameter, name, which is going to be optional, where you can either, if you pass a name in, it's going to get you that user from the cache. And if you don't, it's just going to return all the users from the cache. So we're going to get a list of the users in the cache that match that users underscore key value that I put in there, and then for each one of those, we'll just return the value from the cache to the user. So if we save this and we actually run this, I didn't specify a name, so now you can see it returns my user Adam that I have created inside the cache. So now that we have some basic stuff, I'm actually going to go ahead and create my my app. So we're going to create an app. I'm going to call it, I just stick with what I have. Holiday gift list. And what did I set this URL to? So I just want to make sure all my demos work. Yes. Okay. Gift list. All right. So create an app, and now our app is saved. And if we were to actually view this, we just have a little hello world app, nothing fancy on it. And we'll start to kind of customize this for our gift list. So one thing that I want to do is make it a little festive. So I'm going to put a custom theme in there. So all this is doing is setting a primary color for the palette of the app. So we do have the built-in theme, but I want it to be green. So I'll add that. And now if we go look at our app, you can see that the top has turned to green. So the next thing I want to do is I want to actually add a little, well, I guess we'll update the title first so that we actually have a title for this. We're going to do Holiday Secret Santa, and that should update that. And now you can see got that title. And now I want to add an image. So what I'm actually going to do is create a published folder. So what a published folder lets you do is host arbitrary files. So I can host images, for example. So if I click this published folder, I'm just going to call this images. The path will be images. So this is the actual file system path. So if you just include images, it's going to be relative to the repository. So I actually want to create an images folder inside my repository. And then the request path is URL you'll actually go to in the web browser to view your image. I'm going to do custom images. So now that that's created, I can actually go ahead and populate that. So I'm actually going to just do that in my file system because that's just easier. So I'll create an images folder, and I'm going to put...
Yeah, you also have... okay, so you don't create the folder beforehand, yeah? Because if you do that, I think you can have an upload button. There's an upload button.
Oh, yeah, right. I could have done that.
Right beside this, yeah.
I actually, I didn't have to manually do that. I didn't even think about that. Sometimes I forget that we've implemented some of that. But yeah, now you can see I have a file here with my logo in it. And because it's being served to that published folder, if I actually go back to my app code, I can add that logo to the app. So now if we save that, you'll see that we have our little present here for our holiday Secret Santa. That was really important for me to do. All right, so now that we have all the important details done, let's go ahead and, oops, I'm looking at the wrong folder. Yeah, I want to create a page for my admin stuff. I just want to make sure I get all this right. So, okay, we're going to create this, and I'm going to call this admin. I'm going to set the URL to admin. I'm going to set the role to administrator, and then click OK. And now you can see I have this admin page. It doesn't have anything in it right now. But what we can do is if we go back to the dashboard here, if we were to call or set up an array of pages, pages equals that, go get UD page, whoops,
yeah,
page name, admin, and then replace the content because we don't want the content to come from there. We want it to come from our page. So we'll go pages. Now when we reload that, it's not going to find the home page anymore because that doesn't exist. The admin page does. So it looks the same, but now this content, Hello World, is actually coming from that admin page. So let's go over to our page, and we're going to start building our admin page. So there's a couple things that I want on the admin page. I want a couple tabs that will contain the list of users, and then another tab that has a form where I can pretty much invoke that script to add new users. So I'm just going to grab that tab stuff. So we'll do new UD tab, and let's see, new UD tab text, and this is going to be add user, and we'll set the content of that, and do that. So now we have two tabs, and if we save that, this is what the admin page looks like now. So we have users and add user. Nothing in there yet, but we can build that out. We'll start with the add user form. So in here, what I'm actually going to do is I am going to call new UD form. And what you can do is you can just pass a script to new UD form, and it'll actually generate a form based on the parameters of that script. And if you remember, this script has a single parameter for the name. So if I save that, you can see now we get this form automatically built for us, and if you submit this form, it's going to actually create a new user. So we do something like Tom, submit it. You can see the form was submitted successfully. And if we actually go back to the admin console and go to our cache, you'll see that Tom was created. So go ahead and back to our app. And let's work on the other side of this page, which will be listing the users. So similar to your demo, I'm actually going to use a table to generate the users. So I am going to copy and paste this for now. Let's scroll down here a little bit just so we can see all this code and format this. All right. So what I'm doing here is a couple steps. First of all, I am doing invoke PSU script. So I'm actually going to call get users. When you specify wait, what it'll actually do, instead of returning the job ID and like continuing on, it'll actually wait for that script to complete, and then it'll return the data that script generated. So in this case, it's getting those users. Remember, we created that script, and if I don't pass in any parameters, then it's going to give me all the users. What silent does...
Just a question. So if the script is a long-running script that, for example, runs for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, does the user get a waiting sign, so some kind of squiggly stuff or so, or do we have to build that out also with the different components that we have inside of Universal?
Yeah, it depends a little bit. This way, it will automatically do it. You'll see it because even calling a pretty simple script like this, it does take like a second or two for it to return because it's got to put it on the scheduler and everything. And because this is at like the top level, the page will show it like what they call a skeleton, like a loading thing. While it's getting that, and I'll show you that in just a sec.
Nice.
Here, I'll actually go over there, and then I'll describe these columns a little bit. So if we actually go here, you see this. So while it's pretty quick, but yeah, that is what's causing that little delay there, is it's actually going out and running that script. And I could get users directly without calling, invoke PSU script, and it would be faster. The only reason I did it this way is to kind of demonstrate that when you do it with invoke PSU script, it shows up in the jobs table. So now you can see all the invocations of that. So that is also like, I don't know, kind of depends what you're doing. Typically for retrieving data, I don't necessarily think I would do this, but maybe
you should do an endpoint.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. An endpoint or like a module or something like that. But yeah, so just kind of demonstration purposes. All right. So I'll describe. Oh, sorry.
The thing I would just add is like, the principle of web development just applies exactly the same with PowerShell Universal, which is good. But it's just like sometimes we need to transpose what we've learned in other languages and technologies with PSU.
Yeah. I agree. Okay, so I'm setting up some basic columns. Previous demo obviously went through some of this already. Basic columns like name and title, or the name property here, which is going to display the name of the user. A URL. I'm actually creating a link so that I can click on it. So that's what onRender is doing here. Next, I'm calling this visited, which I didn't end up using, which will create effectively an icon based on if the user visited their URL or not. Their assigned user, so who their Secret Santa recipient is, and then a remove button to actually remove users, which I actually didn't end up implementing, but it would be the same concept of running a remove user.ps1 script, and if I spelled parameters right, it would have done that. So now we kind of have this this behavior here where we see our table, we see the users that have been added, and we have our add user form. So I'm just going to add a couple more people to our group here. We added that user, and what you'll notice is that this doesn't refresh. So there's nothing really happening here in terms of the table refreshing, and the only way to get it to do so is to do something where you click refresh button and then it shows up. We'll make it a little more dynamic in a second, but I just kind of wanted to point that out. So we'll add one more person. We kind of want a even number of people so that when we assign Secret Santas, they everyone gets one. We don't have anyone left out. And now what I want to do is actually set up that assignment process. So I want to be able to assign users their Secret Santa. So again, I'm going to come in and I will create another script. I am going to just make sure I get the name of this script right so everything lines up. Yeah. All right. I'm going to call this one Assign Secret Santas. All right, this is, oh, that's the wrong one. This is where I think now that I'm looking at this code, I'm like, wow, I really want to overkill on some of this, but I'm again calling invoke PSU script inside my assign Secret Santas. It's going to get all the users, and that's what this list of users will have. From there, I'm going to kind of duplicate that array more or less into a users left array, and then I'm going to go through each one of the users. I'm going to use that users left array to grab a user that is not the current user. So someone else in the group, and then randomly assign that to assigned user. From there, I'm going to filter out users left to remove that user that was just picked. So that users left now has that one less user in the group. And then from there, I'm going to assign Secret Santa, the current user, the assigned user, to the one we just randomly selected. And then finally, I'm going to update the kind of our data storage cache with that data. So save that. And if we actually run this script now, I think it does output the users. But if we actually go back to our admin view, what we'll see is now we have an assigned user. Since they went through and picked a random user for each one of the other users, that's someone else. So yeah, Adam has Karen, for example. Is cool. All right. So one thing I want to do is add the ability to do this assignment directly in that app. So we're going to go back to the app code, and I'm just going to adjust the admin page a little bit. And what I want to do is pretty much add a button that lets me shuffle those users around, and then I want to reload the table once I click that button. So in my admin page, I'm going to do two things. First, I'm going to add a button to call that script. So we'll do that here. And this is going to call randomize Secret Santa button. And when I click it, it's going to invoke that script, which is going to assign the Secret Santas again. And then it's going to call sync UD element, which will reload a section of this page once that script has been complete. And then a couple other things that I'm doing, just kind of visual, one being an icon with a little shuffle icon. The second is show loading. And what that does is when you click this button, it effectively disables the button and has a little spinner on it to show that it's actually doing something. The other thing that I need to do is add a dynamic section to this so that we can reload it, because we don't actually have a user section right now. So go ahead and do that.
So you have to use show loading because the script is not in the top level scope this time. So I think therefore you have show loading, right? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And then the other thing that I'm going to do too is I'm going to add a loading component to the dynamic. Mm-hmm. So this is another way to kind of like give feedback that something's loading. So while this dynamic is loading, because it's going to take a little bit for this to happen, it will display whatever is in loading component. So in this case, I just have a circular progress that you'll see. So this will show loading, and then it'll cause this section to reload, which then will show loading for that section. So you know, even if it's not fast, then you still like have some feedback that something's happening. So you can see now, I don't get the skeleton anymore on the page. It loads right away pretty much. But now we have this little like spinner. Obviously, I could do a little more work to like make it a little bit nicer looking, but it's kind of good feedback for the user that something's happening. So now if I click randomize Secret Santas, this is the button loading, and then this is the table loading. So now you can see it re-randomized my users here. And if we go and look, we'll actually see the jobs for that. And I guess one reason that I did kind of go overboard with invoke PSU script was that because assign Secret Santas calls get users, it'll actually have this kind of nested job view where you can actually see the children jobs that were called within assign Secret Santas. So it's just kind of like another layer to the reporting kind of stuff for jobs.
Will that be also available in the portals view? So if a user runs a script through the portal that has a child script called, do we see that in the history view in the portal?
I think you'll see it, but I don't think it'll be nested like that now that you say that.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we could. I don't see why not. I think that would actually be really nice. I kind of like the simplicity of this sometimes, so like I think adding that in there would be good. Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of the basics of our admin side of things. You know, we can have our users and that kind of thing. But now let's work on building out the user side of things. So I'm actually going to go into my app. I'm going to add a new page. think I just called a user. Yeah. Create a new page. User. I gotta make sure I get the URL correct. That's really important. Yeah. All right. Then the URL. So similar to the APIs that we saw earlier with the route parameters, you can do the same thing in apps and pages. So if you go to this URL now and specify a name, that name section is dynamic, and you'll get a name variable available in the script that defines this page. So we'll say create that user. And if we go back to our admin page, well, actually, I got to do one thing. I need to add it to my page array. Now that will add it to the app. And if we go back to the admin page, now you'll see it'll automatically add this navigation. But what I was realizing is that if it has a route parameter, it won't show up. But if I were to click this Secret Santa link here for Adam, now it goes to that user's page, which currently only contains Hello World. But if we went to that page, for example, and did name, it's going to get that from the route parameter, and you're going to see that name is dynamic and shows up here. So if I were to go to Adam or Sarah, now you'll see it'll change based on the route that I'm typing in. All right, so let's do some stuff to allow the user to create their wish list and see their Secret Santa's wish list so that they can give them gifts. So I am going to add new typography at the top. This is just going to say Happy Holidays with the name of the user that is visiting this. You can see there it is. It's kind of big. And similar to the admin view, I'm going to actually use tabs in the user view just so that we can organize it. I'm going to have a wish list for the current user and then the Secret Santa wish list on another tab. And similarly, we'll show these two tabs. And I am going to actually create a custom form to add to the wish list. But what I'm actually going to do first is create a script for that. So let's go to automation scripts. Got to make sure get this right again. So this is called add to wish list. So this is going to allow a user to add to their own wish list. Now I do something like this, and it has two parameters, a name and an item. The name is the user that I want to add their items to their wish list, and then the item is the item that we're adding to the wish list. From there, I'm invoking the get users PS1 script and returning the parameters or I'm passing in the parameter name so that I can get a specific user from the get users.ps1 script. And then again, I'm calling wait so that I get the data back. From there, I'm actually creating an array, and the wish list is just a string separated by commas, and I'm creating an array out of that wish list, adding the new item to that array, and then joining it back into a comma-delimited list of items. This is where a relational database would be really nice. You could have a wish list item table and then join it with the users and stuff. But in this case, I'm just keeping it simple again. I was just printing out the wish list. It took me way longer than it should have to get this section of code working here. I have to admit, I don't know. It's just one of those things where like getting very frustrated, but eventually.
Happens to everyone. So
yeah. I feel like I've done this a million times. And then finally, I'm updating the user's cache with the new wish list data. So unlike the other form that I created on the app page where when we were adding users, it was in this admin page here. I just used new UD form and passed the script. I don't really want to do that because I want to make sure that the current user is automatically populated. I don't want them typing in a username. It should be the current user that is viewing that page. So we have the name, so we don't have to worry about where that's coming from. It's just in there. So let's go ahead and create a form to do that. So I just have a form. Actually, I think does this work? New UD form, and it's going to have a single entry in it. So we do new UD form. Children contains the fields for the form. In this case, I have a wish list item, and I'm just going to have a placeholder text item. And then that ID can be used in here. It looks like I have some debugging stuff in here still. That can be used inside here, inside your onSubmit event handler. So in this case, I'm calling add to wish list, and I'm calling wait with two parameters: the name parameter, which is the name of the user that is currently viewing this page, and the event data wish list item. So that is what's coming from the form. Then next, I will sync a dynamic to display the current wish list. So let's actually define that dynamic. So similar to before, we have this dynamic that has some content in it. I'm calling get users. I probably should have a loading component in here just because it's going to take a second for that to load. Circular. Oops, circular. And that will call get users for that specific user that we're currently viewing. And then we can take their wish list, split it by the comma, and then create a list out of all the items inside the wish list. So we save that. You can see it's loading. We don't have any items in there yet, but I might want a skateboard. And it goes and runs that, loads it, and we have our skateboard in our wish list. I might want a Nintendo. Whoa. Nintendo Switch. And yep, we'll go submit it, add it to the wish list, and now we have two items on our wish list. So yeah, so Adam has those items on his wish list, but you can't see his Secret Santa right now. So let's implement the Secret Santa tab. The first thing I want to do is actually display who the Secret Santa is. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually retrieve the current user, because right now I just have the name. I don't have the actual object. So I'm going to get the name or the object for the Secret Santa, call get users again, and pass in the name, and it will return that Secret Santa object. And then from there, I can actually get the other user, which is the assigned user. In this case, I'm calling get users again, but this time I'm looking up the assigned user. So again, this would be like, you could have a module here. You could also do like a database query where it does the join for you, but I'm effectively doing a database join by calling the script twice. And then next, we'll actually display that Secret Santa user. So now if we go to our tab here, you can see it takes a second because we didn't put that section in a dynamic. But now if you go and look at your Secret Santa tab, you'll see that the Secret Santa is Sarah, and below is a wish list, which we'll just add in one sec. So it's the same data structure as the current user's wish list, so we effectively can use that same code here to generate a list inside of our app. So we do that. Sarah doesn't have anything on our wish list, so we're not going to see that. But if we go back to our admin view, we can see who has Adam. So Karen has Adam. If we go to Karen's page, what you'll see is, if we go to Secret Santa, now you see that she was assigned Adam, and here is his wish list. So you'll see the skateboard and Nintendo Switch show up on that wish list. So yeah, so that was kind of the app portion of this. I did want to talk a little bit about kind of integrating this with other parts of the other parts of the like features that you can do in here. One being that because everything is in a script, you can actually call those scripts from APIs. This could have been a module, like I said. I'm kind of regretting that I did it this way now. But we could set up a like a holiday gift list API, and if we wanted to get our users, for example, we just set that as a get. We click OK. It creates our API endpoint, and from here we can do invoke PSU script. We're going to get the get users.ps1, and we're going to wait for that to run. And we were to go to test our API. It's going to go out and give me a client error because something happened. Oh, because I don't have authentication enabled. Can't really use my current user.
Yeah, you have enabled authentication in the...
Oh, oops.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's try this one. Still doesn't like that for some reason. Body headers. I don't know why that's happening. Oh, I know why that's happening. This is like one of those things where I really should have tested this. I was like, oh, I'll just show off this API thing, and now it's not going to work. There's a couple things going on here. One being that it's trying to use invoke PSU script, but I have like maximum security set on PowerShell Universal, and because of that, it doesn't know the account that's going to call this, and it won't allow me to call this because I'm calling it unauthenticated. So effectively, this is getting called unauthenticated, and it's denying it. If I turn the permissive security on, I could use the integrated switch and then do that, but I'd have to restart my whole server to get that to work, so I think this is still going to fail. Yeah.
So you have to, in this case, you have to create a token for yourself, I think, and then provide the token.
Right. And then...
inside of the header, yeah.
I think it could...
Is there not a commandlet for this? So grant PSU token or so?
There is, yeah. You could grant it. We'd have to... I mean, we could call it in here, grant. But then grant needs a token, effectively.
Yeah. So. That's the chicken egg stuff.
Yeah. Right. See if this works. No. I don't know
Specify
why.
A computer name to use. Ah, okay.
I don't know why it would. Well, I do wonder if I did integrated with a token. I don't know if it actually passes the token. Now we're trying things I've never tried before. No. Still. No. Yeah.
Okay.
Still bad.
Because in the previous versions in V4, that would have worked.
Right. Well, that's the thing is we re-implemented that's what permissive mode is effectively. When you enable that, it goes back to the V4
model
behavior. So
yeah.
Exactly.
That's what I did with my app that I use internally. You create a token variable, or so we create a token, store it in a variable, and call it through the secret scope. That's
right.
The only thing that I did for working around this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we actually added integrated mode too. So there's permissive, which is it will, allow you to call these APIs internally, but there's integrated mode, which is even less strict. It actually calls it over the back channel and doesn't do any authentication, just like V4 did. So, Yep. So I did not set my server up for that, though. But effectively, you should still be able to call get users directly, just like as a script, which is kind of funny because it just works around, I would think.
Interesting.
Wait,
no, okay.
Oh, I have quotes around it. Yeah. It's still just a PowerShell script.
No. Okay, so I think you have now do the path thing, or is it?
Maybe repository? Live coding.
Yeah.
Oh, now this is even more of a chicken and egg problem because yes, like that's just called the script, but that is calling get PSU cache, which is now enforcing the So. Woo.
So explain me. So I'm not used to V5 because I'm still working on V4 mostly. When you have, let's say you have an endpoint that's coming from a module, it's basically the execution is done in a different security model. So you can't just call it. You have to have some kind of authentication when you execute it.
Right. So kind of like in the default secure model, what is happening here is whoever is calling this endpoint effectively passes down their security scope to all the commandlets you're calling. So for example, when I was trying to call get PSU script, whoever is calling this URL here, their security scope is passed to PSU script. So if they don't have permission to call invoke PSU script, then they won't be able to call this. And the idea being that effectively someone could be in here authoring scripts and you could lock down which part of the product they have access to, kind of thing. Because effectively you could have like role-based access in V4 where users only have access to certain sections of the admin console, but that doesn't necessarily stop them from authoring a script that then uses the integrated mode, which bypasses the authentication. So there is no enforcement on the back end. In V5, by default, everything is covered by the security model. So the only way it can figure out who's calling something like invoke PSU script would be whoever is authenticated to this, the API. Yeah, so that's kind of how that works. And honestly, in most environments, people just don't need that much security. So the person that's in the admin console is typically the one authoring it and has the full access to PowerShell Universal. And that's why I think a lot of people are like, why have this, this amount of security when it doesn't really matter. And that's why we added the V4 model back, because in permissive mode, I could just do -integrated, and then I don't even have to worry about all that security stuff. It just doesn't go through the same channel. So,
but how? So you mentioned that you have to restart your server. So do you have to call this server with a specific parameter to enable this one then, or
yeah?
how is it working?
Right now, it's
settings,
in
right?
Yeah, it's in the app settings.
Okay, it's in the app settings. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's an open issue for putting it in here, so you could effectively just do the switch in settings, rather than having to restart the server. So I think that'll come in 5.2. Because one of the things that's we're going to do is, in the first run wizard where you set your username and password in V5, we're going to add some stuff in there so that it's very obvious, what's going on and describing, rather than having you got to go to the settings and then dig around in, this big thing of settings to find the correct option. So in the first run, turn off things that you don't need and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just ran over another problem. I wanted to set up authentication with OpenID Connect, so Entra ID. This I got running, but I had some weird stuff with mapping the permissions. So in the end, I ended up to go to the role and add only $true to it, because then I wrote in the comments that this role has always to return true or false if it's assigned or not. Is that correct?
Yeah. So you're saying, for example, an administrator, you said
this one. Yeah. So because this one, so I would have to have a admin user assigned to the role administrator that comes from the Entra ID, and this won't get assigned because it's false by default. That took me half a day, I think, to work this out. It's a bit. I think that was also other. That was also in V4. I think it was true.
For administrator was true by default. And once we added the default admin, that's why we got rid of this. And I think I don't know if did you try the claim type and value mapping?
Yes, right. Yeah. So I checked. So I logged in with the user. I wasn't able to go to the dashboard. I saw nothing, so I couldn't check the actual claims that were handed over to Universal. And I logged on with the local user, set it to true, and then I was able to, and then I checked the claims, and then the role was mapped correctly. So yes, I set the claim type and the claim value. So the claim type is groups, and the claim value is the object ID of the entry ID group.
Right.
And I was
it just took you a lot of time to
about this.
Get there. Okay, I see.
Yeah. So I then just remembered. Okay, there was a code, because if you are not doing the claim type and claim value, you can also write down your own logic to assign something to an administrator. So if you have Active Directory groups or some other technique, then you have to go to the code view, and that is what I remembered from before, that there is a return value here. And if I assigned that to true, then and also every other role mapping worked if I assigned that to true. That was another strange thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I don't remember if they might have all been true in the previous version.
Yeah. And now you have to have $true. I think that's so. If you want the claim and value mapping to have that role assigned, you just, I think, have to write true. I stored it in a text file, and if I create a role, I just paste this thing that you have inside here and set it to true.
That will effectively give all users that role, is what's happening.
All users that role that have the claim. So I do a claim and value mapping, and then I also have to set this to true to have the role assigned.
You shouldn't be able to do both of those.
Yeah, that is the thing that I was wondering.
Because I thought, it's a bug. I didn't even realize that was happening.
And also, I was able to delete the administrator role. So I wanted to change the file, then I can't save it because of some weird value that was in there. And if I tried to, and if I saved it when removing the administrator role, I don't have any administrator. That was also a bit scary to do.
Yeah.
So maybe, and now we have nothing. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I deleted the policy from it. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I will look at that because I didn't realize that was even happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is the way it should be. You should not have to set that to true. Yeah. It should just be just the claim type and value.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry for calling you out, but I just wanted to. This is normal behavior. So
it is not normal behavior, and I'm glad that you mentioned it because we can get it fixed then.
Yeah.
And also this, I noticed this today. Oh.
Oh, okay.
That's annoying.
That's that don't happen to me, but I think you have it because of the sizing problem that you have. I think because because it's sized so big. I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice.
Well, yeah.
Do we have any question? So, sorry to interrupt you, but Adam, are you finished, or do you have something?
Yeah, I am finished.
Okay.
I was trying to show something I had not prepped, so I'm done with my prepped stuff.
Okay. Does anyone in the audience have any questions to Adam, to me, or to anyone else? What do you think of the session? Was it understandable? Do you see any value for this? Do you understand Universal now better, because we had sessions only about, okay, what is Universal, what can you do with this, and so on. I think a live demo kind of thing is good, where to show some, in quotes, practical use cases for this, that you get a bit more familiar with the platform. Are there any questions? Okay. There are not any questions.
If there's none, I'm probably going to ask a few then.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Adam, what do you see PowerShell Universal used, in the wild? What does your customer do with it?
I would say mostly what I see is reporting and management of like their internal systems. So some of the bigger like configurations are like cross-platform, or like, cross-product like data gathering and management. So for example, like they want to see a holistic view of a user, and like being able to like go look at that user, but like every little aspect of that user, like what does that user do in Active Directory, or like Enter ID, or what do they have access to in terms of hardware, and like all that kind of stuff, where they kind of take all this data from all these different systems and put it all into one place, and view it from there. And that's what I see a lot in the app stuff, is like that reporting and management for multiple systems all in one tool. The other thing that I've been seeing more recently is replacement of like tools that they either have built previously or have paid for previously, that maybe aren't receiving the same support or don't have all the functionality that they need. They'll build it in PowerShell Universal just because they have access to like the APIs, or like the UI tooling to like build that. And then I'd say just like general automation stuff. Lots of people will, put their scripts in here and kind of have it a centralized location for their PowerShell people to work on scripts and share those scripts with people that are not PowerShell people. And that's where we built this, because our users aren't always wanting to build apps. Like the app thing is cool and really powerful, and you can do a lot with it. But some people just want to develop a script and give it to their end user without having to do the whole UI thing. So it's kind of that too, where I've seen some really non-technical teams using PowerShell Universal on the front end, because they have a technical guy that is writing all these scripts, and rather than calling him up to run this script, they can just give him a web form, and he doesn't have to go necessarily build an app. He can just give them a UI around the script. So that's, I'd say the most common use case.
That's why I was so excited with the portal, because you can very easily create a front end for your script to have for example, a date picker or something like this, to have a GUI for a not so sophisticated guy who want to run your script. You don't have to go inside of the admin console and click and so on and so forth. So that's I think a really cool. We started in our organization, so I built a dashboard that displays billing data, so for our billing department and so on. So that's also cool. And we also advertise something to customer that they don't fight the different Microsoft portal fights. They want to have an app where everything is centralized into one. So if you are seeing it from an Intune perspective, you have a device, you have a user, the device has some Defender for endpoint data, and the device has apps, the user has some risk assignments, and so that you showed in everything in one dashboard. And that's what we are currently in the process of evaluating with the customer. And we will use Universal for this if it gets ordered. So it's definitely a cool tool for building like something like this.
It took me a while to understand the portal thing, because I'm really used to apps, and then I think, why would you do anything else? So I'm still an app lover and not that much a portal lover. But
Yeah, it seems like, I don't know, new users that are looking for something simple are the people that are excited about the portal. I think people that know how to build apps are like, yeah, it's not flexible enough. Why would I ever do something like that? So,
Yes.
Yeah.
So Frank, you wanted to add something?
I have a question. I was muted a few minutes before. Maybe a strange question, but since PowerShell is normally case insensitive, how are the routes? Are they case sensitive or case insensitive?
You mean like in terms of like the pages and API URLs and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is all case insensitive. So,
Okay.
and if you do have like route variables, it's going to pass you the same case that was passed to it. But as long as your script is case insensitive, it shouldn't matter. Yep.
Any other questions?
You talked about module?
The
deployment.
The deployment. So yeah,
deployment.
that would be nice if you could show the deployment stuff. Yeah.
Just to explain the principle at least.
Yeah, and the principle.
Sure.
Yes.
So okay, let's see, this is another thing I haven't tried. So good luck. All right. So the idea with the deployment is that effectively that this file system, which is your configuration for PowerShell Universal, like it's all in, PS1 files, and so historically we've integrated with Git for like history tracking and that kind of thing, and deploying across multiple PowerShell Universal instances. But it's like tricky to and kind of dangerous, honestly, to use Git in production sometimes, because one change could like ripple out to all your systems, and if there's like a merge conflict or something like that. So actually, Gail brought up the concept of like having kind of an immutable package for PowerShell Universal deployments. So the idea with the deployment is it takes effectively a snapshot of your PowerShell Universal environment and then creates a PowerShell module and NuGet package, which really what a PowerShell module is in like the PowerShell gallery. And then you can deploy it into your PowerShell Universal environment. So I know Gail doesn't want me to show doing deployments in the UI, but I'm going to do it.
For a demo, it's okay.
Yeah, okay.
So that means you read my comments.
Yes.
So you can query this via API if you're authenticated.
Yes. So
nice.
there is an API. There's also one just quick comment. This PowerShell Universal Christmas demo is up on GitHub. So
okay, drop it in the chat.
Yeah, that would be great. I just I dropped mine also.
Chat. Where's the chat?
Bottom right of gather.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah,
there you go.
Oh, thank you. Room nearby. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so you can obviously do a deployment, which I just did in there. But I also made a GitHub action for this. So this actually goes out. It calls all the APIs for PowerShell Universal to effectively generate or deploy or push a deployment out to your PowerShell Universal environment. So you can include this GitHub action in your PowerShell Universal like Git repository, so where all your configuration data is stored, and then it'll show up as an action, like a workflow here, and then you can deploy it out to your PowerShell Universal environment. So you can make changes in your your repo, run the workflow, and it's going to create a package that is that deployment and push it out to PowerShell Universal. And then PowerShell Universal doesn't need like any knowledge of Git or anything like that. It just accepts this deployment and then effectively applies it. So as an example, I created this deployment, 2 minutes ago or whatever, and it is a snapshot in time of the PowerShell Universal instance that we have here. So if I were to come in and I were to say like I want to delete this API that didn't work, effectively now I'm different from that deployment. The deployment included that change or whatever. If I go back to my deployment, we create a new deployment where that API is gone. Production 2.0. I gotta fix this. I created another snapshot, effectively, of PowerShell Universal. So internally, it's storing these as like those NuGet packages in the database that we can then apply to PowerShell Universal. And if I were to like click this deploy button now, I can actually select that deployment. It's going to reconfigure PowerShell Universal. And if I go back to my APIs, I should have my API back because it went back to version 1.0 of that deployment. One thing you might have noticed with the deployment too is that there's this concept of what we call pinning, which this is what I would assume people would do in like a production environment. Is like if I wanted to go back to the 2 version that didn't have that API, I click that, and again, I think I got to refresh. Okay, so now you can see that it has this little tag at the top that says the currently applied deployment and version inside PowerShell Universal. So it effectively accepts the deployment, applies the deployment, but now the entire thing is read-only. So that API is gone. I can't actually create any new APIs. I can't like edit my scripts. I mean, you can obviously run your scripts and interact with PowerShell Universal, but from a production perspective, it is read-only and it's pinned to that version. So if you wanted to update this version of PowerShell Universal, then you would go through the whole Git workflow, you'd validate it somewhere else, and then you'd push that deployment up to PowerShell Universal, pin it to the new version, and again, it's kind of like this immutable object that is stable and tested, and you can't change it, and a Git sync isn't going to break and like take out your production environment. So it's actually much simpler than how the current Git stuff works.
So what happens when you publish a deployment to a PowerShell Universal instance? So what happens when you load this in? Obviously the files are different, but then what does it restart and in which order?
So it restarts everything pretty much. It starts from scratch just because kind of the
Then
Git
do you
stuff,
have an order? Because if you have an app running into an environment,
right,
then you should restart first the environment, then restart the app.
Let me see, because I think I just want to double check deployments. I put this. Oh yeah, I took this directly from the code. I feel like this should be documented, so you probably can't see that.
There we go.
So this is the current order. You can see that the execution environment does come before apps. Where there is a problem right now is with modules. So what it does is it syncs all these things in order, and then it syncs the modules. But if something from a module or something kind of in the root relies on something in a module, that module won't be loaded yet. The other problem is that the module order currently doesn't load any dependencies of those modules. So you could put a script in a module and an environment in another module and say that script module relies on the environment module, and that won't load in order right now. So that is a gap in the module stuff. Because effectively what you could do is almost have no root resources and just have everything in modules. And if we
that
had
would be amazing.
Yeah, then just have the dependency stuff work itself out and then load things in the correct order. So I think this is simple to do. The module stuff is going to be a little harder, but we just need to just do some interrogation of the module manifests and everything.
So it's a good starting point that you have at the moment, because that's why it's in preview, right?
Correct. Yeah.
It was already a problem since before, actually.
Yeah, I think the problem with it before, this is what it does when it starts up, The deployment stuff now allows you to do this anytime kind of thing. But you could have done that module stuff previously, and you would have run into the same problems. I don't even know how it would pick, maybe alphabetical order or something, like how it would pick which module to go first. So.
And then it flip flops. So you would see that you define stuff into the in the module that you load. You would define an app. You would define some scripts and automation schedules, and then you would find them, and then sometimes then it disappears again. And then you need to go back into the configuration and then reload everything. And then the second time it will pick up everything.
Okay.
Which is on V4. Just little quotes around that. This is 4.1.
Okay.
So are you able to create a NuGet package from a Universal? And
it's a module.
Yeah. And so you can copy it to another instance and import it and make it look like your previous instance, correct?
Yeah, right. Okay. And honestly,
which is the point when you have a module, then you can take the module, deploy it to a new instance, run the test on this temporary instance, tear it down, and if you validated your test, then you can deploy it to quality, UAT, and then prod.
Right. And there's kind of like two ways the deployment works too. Is you can push it directly to the PowerShell Universal instance, or if you have the PowerShell Universal instance, like the PS resource repository registered in the PowerShell Universal instance, you can also tell it to pull a new module version. So if you had like an internal, PowerShell gallery, for example, your action could publish a module to that gallery, and then PowerShell Universal just needs to know the name and version of the deployment to pull down. And you just poke it and say update to this version, and it'll pull it directly from the repository. So then, so then it kind of like integrates, it goes full, I don't know.
Okay.
And I would recommend the deployment to be a push instead of having something a pull, because basically what you want is to have your artifact to be immutable, and then everything inside there. If you start saying, well, go pull this thing, then it will pull the dependencies, I guess, automatically, and then it might not be the full package anymore.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say you probably want to push the thing that you tested and you validated, and then if that's not enough, then you have other problems.
Yeah, right. And that's, both are possible, I guess. So, but
that looks promising. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think
because I had because our environment is living in a web app, so it's living in a web app containerized, and I tried to enable Git there, and it got so slow that it got unusable. So
it's containerized.
Yeah, so I enabled Git there, and it got unusable. So it took so long to do something. When I disabled that, then it went normally again.
I'm kind of surprised in the container. I've definitely seen in Azure Web Apps, when you enable Git inside PowerShell Universal, it hates it. Whatever Git is doing, it is just.
Yeah, and it's doing strange things. So I had a situation where I had to commit everything again. I don't know why, and even more. So I have, I think, 200 files to be edited. I said, where are these 200 files? A bit strange. So I don't use Git for this. So
yeah.
But if you're running a container, probably you want to run, you want to create a container with your package, with your module already in there, and then spin just that one up.
That would be good if for an action where you build the container yourself, do it in a Azure Container Registry, and then pull the image from there. Yeah, that would be a good thing. Definitely have to
and for that
try that out. Yeah, sorry.
And for PowerShell Universal, if you can define everything you have directly into a module, then it's easier to say, well, I have my module that I tested, and then I can just package my container with a module in there, and then everything's happy.
I think the where you locked the universal instance. I think it was available before you introduced deployments. Correct? I think we had a demo already in the user group where I showed that. Was it in the ending of 4, or just remember correctly? I think you did something and this was also locked. I don't know what it was.
One-way get sync will do that.
Okay.
I think that's the only way I can think of where it effectively makes it read only. So
yeah, because we had some presentation where you showed preview bits. Was it then the V5 stuff already starting where you showed this feature?
Yeah.
I don't know. I have to search. But
no, I know what you're talking about. Actually, never mind. It's
okay.
You can go in here and you can set computers to read only.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the other place that you could do this technically.
Okay.
So that's a little interesting because that is a database setting and not something coming out of like the repository. So you'd have to like, depending on your containerization setup and everything like that, you'd have to like set that, and I don't know. It's just like outside the scope of the repository, which makes it, I think, less useful. So.
Okay. And just a question out of curiosity: have you had any customer that uses the new WebSocket feature? So the feature that you implemented into, I think it was APIs.
Yeah, the Event Hub.
Event Hubs, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So this will be called Agent eventually.
Yeah.
Because once we released it in V5 and just renamed, like, seriously, the documentation tab to Agent and stuff like that, people are like, oh, that's what it is. Like, Event Hub doesn't make any sense to anyone. So,
well, it does, but I thought it was completely different. I thought it was an Event Hub.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's morphing into Agent. It's still kind of basic. Like, you can, send commands to these agents effectively, and there's no way to like send a script down necessarily to an agent right now. The only thing you can really do is call like invoke PSU command, specify a commandlet and parameters, and then run it. And we actually do have people starting to use this. There are. I know that just because there are bugs coming in.
Okay.
So yeah, so people are starting to use this because they want to be able to either access machines that are cross-domain, and it's really hard to do something like PowerShell remoting.
Right.
Or they just want to fan out a little bit easier. I don't know. So so it's coming along. I think you're going to see it evolve a little bit more into an agent. I think the kind of a natural progression is like being able to like schedule scripts against agents and run scripts against agents and that kind of thing. There are some obvious like considerations we need to make, especially around like how do we get files down there? What does the security model look like when we start sending files to these connected computers and that kind of thing. So yes. So I think people want that, and I think it's going to continue to evolve a little bit closer to what you would expect from an agent. So
that's cool.
Nice shirt, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. I thought about that when I put it on. I was like, oh yeah, this is a perfect shirt to wear.
Is it the Swiss shirt?
Yes,
right?
Yes, Switzerland.
Yeah. Nice, cool.